Hi everybody, it's Philipp Druzhinin, and we're gonna talk about the modern situation in politics in the Middle East and this Mediterranean basin. It's a key point to what we call understanding of a true meaning of our history, because this region has the huge potential in revealing what we were like a couple of hundreds of years ago, because this is antique, so-called antique region. They date him like since Greek, Romans, and stuff like that. But what I'm thinking, and I'm proposing this theory, that what we know as antique civilization was available and a prosperous civilization until maybe 16th or 17th century. After that, it was split up to many different parts, and the hugest part was Great Tartary, Great Tartaria, whatever, and there were a bunch of smaller parts which are pretty similar to what we see right now. It was a German Empire, it was Ottoman Empire, it was little Russian kingdom, which later expanded and conquered all the great Tartarian country. And also it was Persia, and it was France. France was leading player in this region, along with United Kingdom, because United Kingdom always had interest in this Middle East region, which is now known as Israel. At that time it was called Palestina and Palestine, and this Syria was occupied by France. So Palestine was a British, and part of the Cyprus was British, and this was just a destroyed Ottoman Empire, split up with such countries as Syria, Iraq, Armenia, and Turkey. Armenia was like a part of this was a Turkish Empire, Ottoman Empire, which was destroyed in the First World War. So just a brief excursion. Why is this region is so important? Because wherever you go in this world, as much concentration of strategic and historical points you never find anywhere in the world, because this is just like complete basin of historical and archaeological, starting with this Egypt, just a fountain of different architectural monuments. Jordan with this Petra, and Palestine and Israel, and modern Syria is just a huge part of Ottoman Empire, and Turkey itself, because all this region is just stacked with all these artifacts, just like Greece and just like Italy. And of course, when we talk about this region, we talk about the end of the world, so-called end of the world. So Sheikh Imran Hussein gave an interview to Serbian website, I think, or maybe a newspaper, who knows. And I encourage you to watch this interview. In this interview, he is describing and covering the topic of Zionism and stuff like that. And in the group, we also discussed this point of him and this video of him. And I said something like, the Crimea is not the actual meaning of what he is talking about. So he thinks that Crimea is pretty important. Of course, it's pretty important, and we know that. But why it is so important, he doesn't completely know. Well, he knows a part of the truth, and he is encouraging us to believe that it is real cause of why Crimea is so important to Russia and to everybody. Well, I'll tell you what is Crimea actually today, because it's a huge point in history which was erased by those who are in control today. You may call them whatever, you may call them world government, you may call them shadow committees and stuff like that. Maybe you can call them sionists, lobbies and stuff like that. But I tell you what, there's a whole bunch of different players on the map, and they are all separated by different reasons. And of course, the story of Crimea starts. Let's start it not from that long ago. Let's start it from the year of 1945, 1944. 1944, it was a Yalta conference. Yalta is just a tourist haven in Crimea, here on the shore. It has splendid views and stuff like that. And it was also a place where a bunch of these meetings were taking place. Maybe we'll find some pictures of that. I guess you've seen those famous pictures when Roosevelt, Stalin and Churchill met, along with all those army generals which were in this also involved, of course. But what they were talking about? It was for the year of 1944. At that time, Russian forces were pretty exhausted, and of course they had already discussed it with Stalin about when United States and allies gonna land on the continent. They were discussing Italy and they were discussing France, because the two ways where they could have hit the German forces from the south and from the west. But Roosevelt didn't want it to happen that easy for Stalin, because they knew that Hitler was a tough guy, and he had pretty nice arming and weaponry, and they were big scientists in Germany there. They had even rocket and those nice automatic guns that they used, which were a lot more less and easy to and more cheaper to use than all this stuff was German. German Air Force was probably the best in the world at that time. It was not that numerous, of course, not that large, but it was pretty awesome, as they say. So not everybody, and not Roosevelt, not Churchill, they didn't want to lose the war. If they landed, they wanted to be sure that they're gonna win. So they knew that if Germans put all their forces to Russia, that's the real time to land, because no one wanted to lose this war. because Germany was about to be done by Russians, but who knows what kind of price Russia would pay to win the war by itself. Who knows? We paid, like they say, a huge price, but we're gonna discuss that later, and this is not the topic today. So Crimea was the place to meet, and at Yalta they of course already put up that question about when the Allies gonna start attacking Hitler. They knew how to split Germany already, but they didn't know where, when to attack. So Stalin was put in the position when he is supposed to say something. He was supposed to give something, and he was supposed to step back and take whatever the Allies will bring him. So, but Stalin was wise enough, and he did it. He did it because otherwise we would lose like maybe 20 million more people. Who knows? And he did it to save all these people, and he said, okay, I'll give Crimea to you. And Roosevelt and his wife signed papers, and they owned the land of Crimea. Stalin sold it. Stalin sold it because he had to sell it, believe me, because we owed like a whole bunch of money to America and other allies, and it was impossible for Stalin to refuse it. And Sheikh Imran Hussein, he is Stalin, who is actual beneficiary of this deal. This Crimea region was supposed to be given to Jewish people because they didn't have the state at that time, and Roosevelt wanted to give them this Crimea, almost an island, I don't know how to say that, Crimea semi-peninsula or whatever. And this was supposed to be a new Israel for Jewish people because they were oppressed by Hitler, and they didn't know where to go, literally. And that's what Roosevelt's supposed to do when he would take over Crimea after the war. But we know what happened to Roosevelt. It's the next page of my story, which is pretty obvious. You guys just have to learn a little bit, and you find out that it's completely true, although nobody's talking about it. So Roosevelt bought Crimea for this huge debt, and the actual decision to land in France and start the second front for Hitler. So how did Stalin escape the situation and did not give away the Crimea? It's a long story, guys. But there was a painter who painted Roosevelt picture. Russian painter. Theo Roosevelt. Okay, they even have us like in Wikipedia, unfinished portrait of Franklin Delano Roosevelt. So Elizabeth Shumatov, which is in Russian Elizaveta Shumatova, was making a portrait of Franklin Delano Roosevelt, and started her work around noon at April 12 in 1945. But at lunch, Roosevelt complained of a headache and subsequently collapsed. The president, who had suffered a cerebral hemorrhage stroke, died that day. Shumatov never finished the portrait, but she later painted a new, largely identical one based on memory. The unfinished portrait hangs at Roosevelt Retreat, the little white house in Warm Springs, Georgia, and its finished counterpart beside it. So, but the undercover story about it, that she, Elizabeth Shumatov, was not painting his portrait the first time. She was doing it like a second time. So, and she was pretty. She was pretty. She was pretty. If we find her picture, I don't know. Let's try to do that. Well, I guess we don't know who is exactly this Elizabeth here, but as far as I know, she was pretty, as they say. And maybe one guy who was making journalist research on this topic is right. So I've seen that video which is called The Moment of Truth. This is a huge show in Russia. It's obviously opening some secrets about something, and one of the last editions, it was talking about this theory that Elizabeth Shumatov was like a Russian special agent who was brought to United States in like early 20s, and so she was an undercover agent who was supposed to paint the President of the United States and kill him with the kiss of death, so-called kiss of death. And of course, when you have a dead president who was kissed by a Russian painter, and obviously the war just stopped, and you have this war was about to be stopped. Of course, it was just the last step to be stopped, and so she was kissed. He was kissed by her, and that poison on her lips acted quickly. So president was dead, and the guys who were burying that president, he was buried in the closed coffin. Why is that? Because I think his face was showing the truth that he was poisoned. Okay, and why not? Why not we believe this theory? And that's how Stalin escaped, and he escaped this disgrace from the Soviet people, who would have been pretty disappointed, because they protected Sevastopol and Crimea for like more than 100 days. They were struggling in the were surrendered by Germans, and they were like bombing, and still they survived. They survived in Sevastopol, but they were to retreat later, of course, because it was unbelievably hard to support them with food and stuff like that. So the army commander told them to retreat. But it was a huge battle, and after they defeated Germans in Crimea, of course, no one would have been likely to have fun when Stalin sells this Crimea Peninsula to someone else, like Roosevelt or whatever, or even making this a state for Israel. And somebody else says that that's why Stalin made so many attempts to start discussion of making Israel in Palestine, and that's why they were um, so split by that case with Roosevelt, with the Churchill, and Churchill started this statement about USSR and Cold War after Stalin's attempts to make Israel in Palestine. That's why Crimea was so undercover, and this is just a case that was happening in 1945. Just believe me, if we rewind 100 years ago, we would find not less interesting story about Crimea, because this is the point where war never ended for like maybe a couple thousand years, and this is actual land which is left from all this territory which was flooded. Look at this. That's the actual level of the water at the ancient times, and after this was flooded from the Mediterranean, all this territory, antique territory, was flooded. So this is actual capital of so-called Atlantis, guys. This is so-called Atlantis, the capital of it, because this is actual place where ants were from. And if we again go to Wikipedia, we're gonna find that ants was a nation in the southern Ukraine, modern southern Ukraine. They also were called Scythians and stuff like that, and they were also called Cossacks later, and so on and so forth. So, and there's a whole bunch of interesting things in Crimea, and I encourage you guys to visit it, because there's a whole bunch of interesting stuff here, and also it's a good place to go and on the beach and stuff like that, and have a rest in the sea. Okay, so, and if we rewind 1,000 years from this point, we're gonna find out that this is the place where those ancient Greeks went to get the golden runes, and there's a story about some expedition and stuff like that, Greek mythology and stuff like that, when some Greek guys go and bring some skin of some lamp or something like that, and it's like a golden skin. But when we translated that in Russian, in Old Russian, we're gonna find out that it was a story about the golden plates of texts pressed on the metal, on the gold metal, and this text was made in runic language. And of course, ancient Greeks and those who were called Hellenes, who lived here, wanted to make sure they're gonna have monopoly in mythologies, and they wanted to make sure that Atlantis, the only owners of Atlantis, so-called Atlantis mythology, would be them. And they shared but they missed this one, and they shared it with Italy, so-called Romans, and that's why we have Greco-Roman mythology, which is completely made up and copied from the Atlantis mythology. Because Greece and so-called Italy was the part of the huge Commonwealth, which was called Atlantis Commonwealth, This is similar to World Trade Organization, but it's more integrated in cultural and architectural style. Like everybody had a united style of architecture and technologies. All those standardized and stuff like that. So, and of course, this is a place of the ancient Atlantis. One of the hugest populations lived here, and of course, everybody wanted to take a part of their history with them, and that's why Greeks had to sail here and steal those plates with the text, with the runic text, and they made up a huge story here about that. Okay, and what else? Of course, it's a place where you can control the Black Sea, but Black Sea is not that much important today. Navy, okay, it's okay, but Navy is slow and the rockets are fast. And as we know, Russia tried the new weaponry, and they shot from the Caspian Sea to Syria those new rockets. And I don't know if we can measure the distance here. Oh. Measure distance, okay. It's like maybe they shot from around here. It's like 1 point, almost 1,000 miles, maybe even more. So if we take a first point from Crimea here, we're gonna find out that the distance of those rockets, the declared distance, is 2,500 kilometers. So we take a radius of that, and we see that we can shoot even to London from Crimea. If we shoot like from here, we're gonna reach London. That's why Roosevelt, Churchill, and everybody else since then didn't like Russians owning Crimea, because Crimea is a key point to shooting down everyone in its radius. And of course they're worried about those countries like France, Belgium, and of course England. And that's why they provocated this, and that's why they always want to grab this piece here. So this is not a conflict of interest, this is the synergy of interest. The first interessants are NATO, the second interessants are Israel, which always wanted to capture Crimea, because this is not a safe place for Israel, you know that. It's a whole bunch of terrorist attacks here, and those Arabian, Palestinian guys, they're fighting hard, and no way, no how there's gonna be a peace here, even if they all gonna be dead. All those Palestinians, the others will come and stuff like that. So they have to build a huge wall here to be safe. I don't know how they're gonna do it. I don't know. So that's why they want the Crimea, and Crimea is just perfect for them. It has a nice climate, maybe not that hot, not as hot as Palestine, but it's pretty nice. And of course it has this antique historical meaning, because it was ancient Atlantis, ancient Rome, so-called Rome, because Rome in Russian is Rim. Rim, this is Mir. Mir is the first meaning of the world. So the world starts here. and that's why this little piece of land is so important for Russia and for the whole Europe and world, because maybe it's a little heart of this whole Eurasian continent. Okay, so I guess if you have any questions about that, you're okay and welcome to ask them. Join our group Debunking Conspiracies. I encourage you to start your own research and post your views and comments here. And watch this guy, he's pretty popular. I don't think that you'll be disappointed after a couple of hours listening to his lectures. Don't bother that he's a Muslim, or don't bother any religion. Listen to what the man says first, and maybe he is a propagandist. Of course, he is a propagandist of his religion, but you listen to the information and make your own decision and research. That's what I encourage you to do. And if you ask me how do I connect with Muslims, I connect them just like I connect everyone else. I connect Jewish people, I connect to Christian people, I connect to pagan people, and I connect to everybody. And I talk with everybody the language that they understand. And I think you have to do the same. So see you later, guys. Bye.